Now we look at a couple of case studies with the company Tata Realty Infrastructure Limited. One was in New Bombay, the other was in New Delhi. The first one at Gansoli, Navi Mumbai. The project was just starting actually. It was in the process of finalizing the designs, and they wanted to have a big room kind of approach so that they could finalize the design basis report as quickly as possible, and also evaluate the problems which they may encounter while getting the designs approved by the competent authorities. So, borrowing from the collaborative planning system, they thought the PPC, the person plan completed index, could be a useful concept for evaluating the efficacy of decision making in the big room. And they were actually using the standard concept of design dependency matrices for finalizing the designs, and they were doing a risk analysis to check upon what can go wrong in the design approval stage. So, here BRM stands for big room meetings, and it was attended by all the relevant stakeholders, and the basic check was whether all the decisions for the points listed on the agenda were finalized, and so that no issue left unattended after the meeting was over. So, they had for doing the design dependencies discussions, they had the client, the architectural consultant, structural consultant, MEP consultant and so on, and they could take all the decisions and finalize the design basis report quickly. The process was quite efficient, and for doing the risk analysis, again they had the people from the design departments, contrast department, finance departments and so on. They discussed all the various risks involved, and they had a matrix, severity of risks versus the probability of the risks. So, that is the matrix which was made, and all the identified risks were plotted on this matrix. So, people could understand which were the ones which were more serious to be focused on and which were the ones which are not that serious. So, people also became well aware of the risk management process itself. So, they had two metrics for checking on the efficacy of the meetings. The first one, of course, is the standard PPC or person plan completed. That was defined in this case as the number of issues closed fully divided by the total number of issues discussed multiplied by 100. That is the percentage. And they checked on the PPC score meeting after meeting whether they were remaining at a high level of 80% plus. Otherwise, it means that we are not able to converge, and then they started looking at the reasons for not being able to converge. Again, the root cause analysis approach from CPS was borrowed here, and one needs to ask why it was not done 5 times to go to the real root cause why convergence could not be achieved on any particular points. So, doing this over time, they improved their meeting process and they were able to get the PPC to very high level. And the second metric actually was concerning the way the actual process in which the meeting was conducted. That they called it the meeting effectiveness parameter or MEP. So, MEP actually they had a number of items for scoring. Here there were typically 5 items, and each item they had a score of 1 to 5. So, out of total 25, one needs to see what was the score achieved, and then again track it over the various meetings and make sure that you are on the right track. One can choose one's own points, but in this particular case, what they decided was how well people were prepared for the meeting, whether they were empowered and they expressed themselves fully, and they had a spirit of mutual support, give and take in the meeting, and then the decisions were taken positively or not, proactively. That again was another point. So, on all these 5 points, at the end of the meeting, you take a poll, ask each person to express as against 1, what is your score, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then aggregate the whole thing and see exactly where you stand. One can have any different mechanism by which you can check the efficacy, but it is very good to take stock of how well you conducted the meeting and how well you were able to converge on the issues at hand. Both are important, the meeting process as well as the efficacy of the meeting to finalize the various points. The other project actually again was drill project. It was in Gurgaon in New Delhi, a large building complex, and here they had a formal kind of big room. They labeled it on the outside as a big room, and they have number of protocols how people had to behave in the big room. And they had actually big room attendance sheets, and they had this kind of suggestion boxes on the various issues, so people can even put in their suggestions before or after or later, to on the various issues being considered in the big room. And they had a good organization structure, the overall coordinator or boss for the big room concept, and then for the various buildings they had different coordinators like that. So the big room actually was used not only for discussing in general, but also for doing the very project management itself. That's why they had so many different organizers and the various points. So here again they had 4 major categories for deciding what they call the big room effectiveness index, BREI, like collaboration, then look ahead planning, efficacy, knowledge building and tools used, continuous improvement through Kaizen. They had used Kaizen also in this project. So all these, they had a number of different scoring mechanisms. Then used to get a weighted measured score and then got the overall score from 0 to 1, exactly where people stand, how the meetings went, and they were tracking it across the various meetings from time to time. And with this, they could actually keep track of how well the meeting was conducted, how well the people were participating in it, and whether they were also working on the various issues in between the meetings, whether they were able to give any suggestions, what kind of kaizens or improvement measures they adopted. So a number of things came in this second case study. So it's up to the organization and the people concerned of how to conduct the big room. Basic points we have already covered. Get all the people together, have convivial, effective meetings, cover all the points, come to your decisions quickly, and then evaluate the process of your meeting as well as the effectiveness with which you are able to conclude. Then you are on the right track and you will be able to reap a lot of benefits by using the big room approach. So all the best to you in your big room meetings. Thank you.